Before long, he will leave this world behind, and all that he owns shall be mine. I will be richer than the chiefs of the land, Zola whispered with a sly smile as she lounged lazily on her reed mat, tapping through her phone with idle fingers. Zola had grown up believing in what she called the daughter of the moon life, where women were meant to be adored, pampered, and kept in silk, not toiled out to Zola. A woman's place wasn't behind a loom or working the fields, but beside a powerful man who would fill her baskets with gold. She was the talk of Nandala village, not just for her radiant beauty, but for how she floated like a breeze through life. Her smooth bronze skin glowed like fresh she oil in the sun. Her long dark locks danced with every step, and her dazzling smile could weaken even the strongest elder's knees. But behind all that beauty burned an unquenchable thirst, a hunger for riches. Zola was certain the swiftest path to her dreams was through wealthy men. Marriage or courtship, it didn't matter, so long as her wants were met. She had no time for crafts or skills, no interest in building her own hut when she could live in palaces built by others. Why should I waste my days learning a trade when a man's coins can carry all my burdens? She'd often declare to her younger sister Benta. Benta, unlike Zola, was humble and hardworking. She had just completed her training as a tailor, threading patterns as bold as her spirit. One quiet evening, while the two sisters sat on the clay steps of their modest compound, Benta turned to Zola and spoke with gentle firmness. Zola, this path you walk, it leads to nowhere. Relying on men is no plan at all. You must find something that belongs to you. Zola flicked her thick braids over her shoulder and smirked. Benta, you worry too much. Why should I wear myself thin when there are wealthy men ready to drape me in gold? I just need to stay beautiful and live sweetly. That's not how the world spins, Benta said, her voice rising like a warning drum. What happens when they stop giving? What will you do when you're no longer the girl everyone chases? Zola laughed, tossing her head back. By then, I'll already be the wife of a tycoon. Relax, little sister. You think too far ahead. Benta only sighed and shook her head. I hope you won't look back one day and see only emptiness. Later. That evening, a red-painted Jeep rolled into the dusty path outside their home. Out stepped Nia, Zola's closest friend and biggest mischief partner. Nia was just like her, bold, stylish, and fully convinced that men were meant to provide the joys of life. Get your fine self ready, my queen. Tonight we dance under the moon, Nia called out excitedly. Zola's eyes sparkled. Who's our target this time? There's a new catch I met last market day. He's dripping with money. But if I don't like him, he's yours. Zola burst into laughter and gave her a high five. That's why I love you, always sharing the spoils. An hour later, the two sashayed into the Baobab Lounge, wrapped in their finest outfits, their perfume trailing like flower petals behind them. The moment they stepped in, all eyes turned. Zola drank in the attention like palm wine. She felt like royalty among villagers. Nia nudged her and pointed toward the VIP hut. There, that's him. His name is Abasi, owns spice farms and merchant. Ships in Kintu Bay. Been spoiling me with gifts all week. Let's greet the lion, Zola said, lips curling into a confident smile as they approached. Obasi's face lit up upon seeing Nia, but soon his gaze slid to Zola, slow and appreciative. Who's your friend? He asked, charm oozing from his voice like honey from the comb. This is Zola, Nia said with a knowing grin. Obasi extended his hand. The pleasure is mine. Your beauty could blind the sun. Zola blushed. Thank you, Abasi, I've heard many tales about you. The night flowed with laughter, strong drinks, and empty promises. Obasi, enchanted by Zola's confidence and beauty, spent freely, showering them both with attention and gifts. By the time the stars began to fade, Zola had made up her mind. Obasi was her next step. The following morning, Benta confronted her. You came home when roosters were crowing. This isn't living, Zola. Zola rolled her eyes. Oh, Benta, don't start. I had fun, that's what matters. For how long, Zola? You're nearing your 30th season, and you have nothing but bags and shoes gifted by strangers. Zola snapped. Don't be bitter just because I'm living well. Bitter? Benta scoffed. I just don't want you to wake up one day, empty, wondering where the time went. I'm not wasting anything, Zola said, her voice sharp as a knife. I'm enjoying life. Later that day, Nia called, bubbling with excitement. Guess what? Obasi wants us to join him on a trip to the City of Gold, to Kintu Bay, next week. Zola's eyes widened. The City of Gold? Nia, you are a blessing. Let me get packing. Pack your wrap, sister. We're about to live like queens. Nia squealed, her voice full of excitement. Zola ended the call and immediately started making plans for the trip, ignoring Benta's disapproving glances from the corner of the room. Zola was too caught up in her daydreams of silk robes, gold bangles, and overflowing baskets to notice the storm that quietly brewed on the horizon. Life, however, has a way of humbling even the boldest hearts, and Zola's season of ease was quietly ticking away. One bright Friday night, Zola and Nia set out to visit a newly opened elite lounge deep in the heart of Kintu Bay. Word had traveled fast. This was the gathering spot of the land's wealthiest men, and for two women with eyes locked on fortune, that was all the lure they needed. Dressed in their most dazzling outfits, shoes that sparkled like stars, and handbags with the sheen of fine goatskin, they entered the lounge with the confidence of river goddesses. The air inside breathed riches. From the hanging crystal lamps to the deep velvet cushions, every corner whispered power and privilege. Nia leaned toward Zola and whispered, "This is it, sister. Tonight, someone's going home rich." Zola smirked, her voice smooth as palm wine. "If he's got coins, I'm already interested." As they sipped their drinks, a group of older men strolled in. They stood out against the youthful crowd like baobab trees in a field of grass. Their clothes were stitched with quiet luxury, their wrists heavy with golden timekeepers. Nia nudged Zola, gesturing toward them. "That's ancient. Wealth, right there." Zola laughed. "Ancient is right. They look like they belong in history scrolls. Must be in their 60s at least. Not our usual flavor." "Who cares about flavor when there's wealth on the table?" Nia replied with a wink. Moments later, one of the older men, short and bald with a walking staff and a golden wristband, hobbled over to their table. He smiled warmly, though the lines on his face told long stories. He looked closer to 80, and his slow movements spoke of time's heavy hand. "Good evening, beautiful blossoms," he said in a deep, cracked voice, eyes settling on Nia. "I am Elder Jumo. May I sit?" Nia forced a smile and nodded politely. "Of course, Elder. Be welcome," she said, avoiding his gaze. Elder Jumo lowered himself gently onto the seat with effort. "Your smile shines, child," he said to Nia. "I saw it across the room and couldn't resist coming over." Nia smiled awkwardly while Zola hid a snicker behind her drink. A few moments of light conversation passed, and it became obvious that Elder Jumo had taken a liking to Nia. "And what is it you do, Elder Jumo?" she asked, her tone friendly but distant. "Ah, I have long laid down my tools. I worked for decades in the oil and spice trade. The gods have been kind to me. I want for nothing now," he said. "But tell me of you, dear girl." Nia squirmed slightly, clearly uninterested, and Zola noticed right away. Nia's eyes begged for rescue. Zola leaned forward with an enthusiastic grin. "Elder Jumo, you seem like a treasure chest of stories. Nia's just a little shy, but I promise you, she values every word." Nia's eyes widened in shock, but before she could speak, Zola continued, "Why don't we trade numbers? I'm sure you could teach us how to live like real queens." Elder Jumo chuckled, clearly pleased. You, young one, are full of fire, he said, handing her an old-style flip phone. Zola quickly typed in Nia's number and returned it, flashing a charming smile. As Elder Jumo shuffled back to his companions, Nia turned to Zola, her voice low and sharp. What was that? Why would you do that? Relax, Nia, Zola said, waving her hand. This is our moment, don't you see? A man like that will rain gifts on you, and he's so old, he'll hardly ask for anything in return. Nia's face tightened. He's ancient, Zola. I don't feel right about this. Exactly, Zola said. He's too old to chase or cling. All he wants is a soft voice and maybe someone to share a story with. Meanwhile, you'll be dripping in silver. Nia paused, unsure. It still feels wrong, Zola. Come on, Zola urged. We've danced with married men and those old enough to be our uncles. This is no different, except this one might just open doors we've never seen. Nia sighed deeply. Fine, I'll give it a try. But if this turns strange, if it gets strange, I'm out. Nia's voice was firm, but Zola leaned in with a sly grin and whispered, Trust me, sister, you won't regret this. The very next day, Elder Jumo placed a call to Nia, and Zola sat right beside her, coaching her like a seasoned merchant training an apprentice. Sounds sweet, but not too eager, Zola murmured as Nia answered. Hello, Nia, this is Jumo. I hope I'm not disturbing your peace, came the old man's slow, gravelly voice. Not at all, Elder, Nia replied, forcing a bright tone. It's good to hear from you. Would you honor me with your company for dinner tomorrow? He asked gently. Nia glanced at Zola, who was nodding furiously. Sure. She sighed reluctantly. That would be lovely. Excellent, he said. I'll send a car. The place is one of my favorites. I think you'll like it. As soon as the call ended, Zola clapped with joy. This is it, Nia. Your golden path begins now. The next evening, Nia left for dinner while Zola paced the floor, restless. For updates. When Nia returned, Zola pounced with questions. How was it? Did he shower you with gifts? What did he say? Nia slumped into a chair and sighed deeply. It was interesting. He's kind. But it's strange, Zola. He speaks to me like I'm his granddaughter. He even called me child more than once. Zola burst out laughing. That's perfect. That's how these old men are. Respectful, harmless. But did he give you anything? Without a word, Nia pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a gleaming gold bangle. Zola's eyes widened. That's stunning, see? I told you. Stick with him. This is just the beginning. Despite her hesitation, Nia agreed to keep seeing Elder Jumo, mostly because Zola kept pushing. But while Nia's interest remained lukewarm, Zola's jealousy began to bubble. She started dreaming of ways to insert herself into Jumo's life, hoping to taste his wealth directly. What they didn't know was that the path they were walking would soon twist into something neither of them could control. 2 weeks after the first dinner, Nia barely gave the elder much thought, but Zola couldn't stop imagining him. Every time they met, her first question was about him. So you and Elder Jumo, are things getting serious yet? Zola asked one evening while they lounged in Nia's living room. Nia shrugged, scrolling lazily through her phone. Not really. He calls every couple of days, but I'm just not into it. He's sweet though, very polite. Zola raised an eyebrow. Not into it? Nia, this man is old, loaded, and clearly taken by you. Do you know how rare that is? Nia laughed. Zola, I feel like I'm talking to my grandfather. I've been dodging his dinner invitations. Zola gasped, pretending to be shocked. This man might be your answer, Nia. What's his full name again? Nia, distracted by a new message, replied casually, Benson Olumo. Zola froze. That name rang a loud, strange bell in her memory, but she masked her reaction with a fake smile. Oh, okay, she said lightly, reclining in her seat. That night, once back in her small flat, Zola's curiosity grew too strong. She pulled out her phone and typed Benson Alumo into the search bar. Her eyes grew wide as dozens of news articles and glossy photos appeared. Elder Jumo wasn't just wealthy, he was a titan. A billionaire mogul in oil and minerals with estates across oceans. Zola's heart pounded. "He's worth billions," she whispered, breathless. Suddenly, the wrinkles and cane didn't matter. He had become the most desirable man she'd ever known. Fueled by this revelation, Zola formed a new plan. At sunrise, she arrived at Nia's hut unannounced, carrying a basket of fresh pastries. "Morning, sister," she chirped. "Brought breakfast. Thought we could hang out. It's been a while." Nia smiled, surprised. "You're in a bright mood today. What's the occasion?" "No occasion," Zola said sweetly. My heart thought I'd spend time with you." They spent the morning chatting, nibbling on honey-glazed buns and sipping ginger tea. But Zola's true goal was hidden. She had her eyes on Nia's phone. When Nia placed it on the table and excused herself to use the washroom, the moment Nia stepped out of sight, Zola seized the opportunity. She grabbed the phone from the low table and quickly scrolled through the call history until she spotted Elder Jumo's number. She memorized it in an instant, then carefully placed the phone back as if nothing had happened, just seconds before Nia returned. That same evening, Zola retreated to her room and dialed the number, her heart pounding like village drums at a festival. When the line connected, his familiar gravelly voice answered, full of curiosity. "Hello. Who is this?" "Good afternoon." "Elder Jumo," Zola purred. "This is Zola, Nia's friend. We met at the Baobab Lounge." "Zola?" he repeated, clearly surprised. "What a surprise. What brings this call?" "I hope I'm not too forward," she said sweetly. "But I've been thinking about you since that night." She let out a gentle laugh, practiced and soft. Jumo chuckled warmly. "Well, this is unexpected. Nia never mentioned you were interested in getting to know me." "She's wonderful," Zola replied quickly. "But there's something special about you." The elder was flattered, and by the end of their call, he had invited Zola to dinner the next evening. Determined to enchant him, Zola arrived at the restaurant wearing one of Nia's best dresses, borrowed in secret, her hair styled to perfection and lips tinted like hibiscus petals. When Elder Jumo saw her, his eyes lit up. "You look radiant, my dear," he said, pulling out her chair with care. "Thank you, Elder," she replied, flashing the same smile that had once stopped men in market's mid-step. All evening, Zola laughed, listened intently, and played the perfect role, and it worked. Elder Jumo was captivated, and by the end of the meal, he promised they would see each other again soon. In the weeks that followed, Zola's life transformed. Elder Jumo lavished her with silk wrappers, golden earrings, a gleaming new car, and thick bundles of cash. Her name became the center of gossip in Nandala as she began parading her wealth across the village and online, sharing photos of fine meals, designer sandals, and scented oils. She had become what she had always dreamed of, a woman adored, adorned, and envied. One afternoon, Nia arrived at Zola's home, unaware of the new life her friend had stolen. Her jaw dropped at the sight of the luxurious vehicle parked outside. "Whose chariot is this?" she asked as Zola opened the door. Zola grinned smugly. "It's mine." "Yours? How?" Nia gasped. "Where did it come from?" Zola shrugged casually. "Let's just say I've been keeping good company." Nia's brow furrowed. "Wait, is this Elder Jumo's doing?" Zola's grin flickered, then returned. "So what if it is?" "You weren't interested." "I simply stepped in." Nia's face flushed with anger. "You went behind my back and took his number? Zola, I trusted you." "Calm down," Zola said with a dismissive wave. "You said he wasn't your type. I saw the treasure you ignored." "That's not the point," Nia shouted. "You betrayed me." "Over a man you rejected? Zola snapped. I'm not going to apologize for chasing my dreams. If you're bitter, that's on you. Nia stormed out, slamming the door behind her, while Zola poured herself a glass of champagne, unmoved by her friend's rage. She was too busy basking in the riches that now surrounded her. What she didn't know was that every indulgent choice she made was weaving the net that would soon trap her. Flaunting her new wealth at every turn, Zola filled her social feeds with luxury, golden trinkets, rich feasts, and moonlit rides in her new vehicle. The entire village buzzed, wondering how she had climbed so high so quickly. Yet there was one person Zola deliberately kept at a distance, Nia. After snatching Elder Jumo from her closest companion, Zola no longer saw value in the friendship. She dodged her calls, ignored her messages, and avoided places where she might run into her. In Zola's mind, Nia had become a threat. What if she found out just how rich Jumo truly was? She might try to win him back. Meanwhile, Elder Jumo, despite being decades older, found Zola's youthful spirit irresistible. Her laughter, her boldness, it all reminded him of a life he thought he'd lost. One evening, as they dined in a high-end restaurant nestled along the Kintu Bay shoreline, he reached across the table and gently took her hand. Zola, he said softly, I've been thinking deeply about us, and I believe I've found my happiness in you. Elder Jumo said softly, his weathered hand still gently holding Zola's. You make me feel alive again. Zola's heart pounded, not from love, but anticipation. She could see exactly where this moment was heading. Elder Jumo, she replied, her voice sweet and trembling with false emotion. He smiled gently. Please, he said, call me Jumo, or better still, your husband-to-be. Zola, will you marry me? For a breathless moment, Zola froze, placing her hand over her chest like a startled dove. Then her eyes locked on the dazzling diamond ring he held before her, a stone so large it shimmered like a moonstone under the candlelight. It was worth a fortune. Yes, she cried, tears she forced streaming down her face. She rose quickly and wrapped her arms around him. Yes, Jumo, I'll marry you. Elder Jumo beamed, but Zola's thoughts were already racing. This is it, she told herself. This is the life I was born for. Without wasting a single day, Zola dove headfirst into planning the most lavish wedding Nandala had ever seen. She hired the most renowned event weaver from Kintu Bay, ordered a custom-made dress sewn with imported fabric, and booked the grandest hotel for the reception. Every detail had to shine, not from love, but to create the perfect image. But secrets have a way of rising like steam from a cooking pot, and Zola's wouldn't stay hidden for long. One hot afternoon, Nia was shopping in the market when she overheard two women exchanging juicy gossip. Did you hear? That girl Zola is marrying some old tycoon, one said. Really? They say he's old enough to be her ancestor. The other chuckled. Nia's ears perked up. She stepped closer. Excuse me, are you talking about Zola? She asked. Yes, one woman replied. She's engaged to that oil baron. Jumo Alyamo, I think. Rage boiled through Nia's veins. She nodded stiffly, thanked them, and walked out gripping her bag like a weapon. She took him from me, Nia thought, furious. And she didn't even have the decency to say a word. Days later, Nia spotted Zola in a boutique admiring wedding trinkets. Her fists clenched. She stormed toward her. So this is why you've been hiding from me, she said, her voice sharp and loud enough to silence the room. Zola turned slowly, surprise painted across her face. Nia. I didn't expect. Don't Nia me, Nia snapped. You stole Jumo from me, didn't you? Zola's smile faded. It's not what you think. Oh, spare me, Nia interrupted. You're unbelievable. You went behind my back, took his number, and now you're planning to marry him? What kind of friend are you? Zola rolled her eyes. Let's not forget, you said he wasn't your type. You didn't even want him. So why act like I wronged you? Because you betrayed me. Nia shouted. You knew how I felt. You crossed a line. Maybe if you weren't so blind to opportunity, you'd be living this life instead of watching me, Zola fired back. But you let it slip through your fingers. Their voices rose until they were practically screaming. You're a snake. Nia yelled. All you care about is gold and glamour. You'd sell your soul for a silk scarf. And you're just bitter and stuck, still broke while I'm out here sipping life like sweet wine, Zola hissed. A commotion drew the shop attendants, who rushed over. Please, madams, calm yourselves, one pleaded. Nia ignored them, pointing a trembling finger at her former friend. Mark my words, Zola, this won't end well. You think you've won, but you don't know what storm you've walked into. Zola smirked. We'll see about that. With a final glare, Nia turned and stormed off, leaving Zola behind to finish her shopping. Zola tried to shake it off, sipping iced tea and brushing lint from her gown. But Nia's words echoed in her mind like distant thunder. Was she right? Was I rushing into something dangerous? Zola quickly buried the doubt under silken smiles. She was now Mrs. Zola Olumo, wife to one of the richest men in the region. Their wedding was the most extravagant Nandala had ever seen. The people marveled at her rise from an idle dreamer to a queen of wealth. For a while, her first year of marriage was like a life with Elder Jumo felt like a dream Zola had painted in her mind since girlhood, and now it was real. He spoiled her endlessly. Gleaming jewelry, silk robes, imported perfumes, and a chariot that turned heads as it rolled through Nandala's narrow roads. They traveled to faraway lands. Zola walked through Parisian markets, dipped her toes in the blue waters of Zanzara Isles, and tasted rare spices in foreign bazaars. One morning, as they sipped mango juice by their private pool, Jumo looked at her with gentle eyes. Zola, I've booked us a private villa near the shores of Santula next month, he said. She smiled sweetly, kissing his cheek. You spoil me too much. Only the best for my queen, he replied proudly. Zola soaked in every moment. This was the life she had hungered for, the one she had sacrificed friendship, pride, and peace to get. Clara's memory had faded to dust in the wind. But as time passed, tiny cracks began to show. Jumo, far older than her usual kind, began to slow down. He often felt drained, his chest occasionally aching. Maybe you should see a healer, Zola said one evening, after he canceled yet another outing. I'm fine, Zola, he replied. Just an old tree feeling the weight of time. Zola didn't press. A part of her, hidden and silent, felt a strange relief. She had always known this story wouldn't last forever. And when it ended, all that remained would be hers. Then fate surprised her again. Zola discovered she was with child. Jumo was overjoyed, beaming like the morning sun, and redoubled his pampering. Our child will live a life filled with every joy, he said, as they painted the nursery walls with bright colors. Of course, Zola murmured, her mind picturing silk cradles and golden rattles. Their son, little Oboma, was born healthy and strong. For a moment, Zola tasted real joy, the deep, grounding love of motherhood. But while their child flourished, Jumo's body weakened. On his 85th birthday, he threw a grand celebration. Elders, traders, and dignitaries gathered beneath woven canopies. Zola stood by his side, radiant in her golden gown, smiling as they cut the cake. You've made this old man happy beyond words, Jumo said, holding her hand. And you've made me feel like a queen, Zola replied, voice warm. But that night, Jumo collapsed. He was rushed to the city hospital. As he lay still, machines humming around him, Zola sat by his side, trying to hide the excitement trembling in her bones. This is it, she thought. Soon, everything will belong to me. She held his frail hand. You'll be fine, Jumo. You're strong. He gave a weak chuckle. I'm not afraid, Zola. I've lived fully. But there's something you must know before I leave this world. Zola's heart skipped. What is it? Jumo's eyes glistened. You've been a good wife. But there's a truth I've hidden. My wealth, it's not what it seems. Zola's brows pulled together. What do you mean? He inhaled with difficulty. When I turned 80, I was ruined. Lost my business, my land, my pride. Then I met a man who offered me a second chance. A ritual. He promised me riches greater than kings. But there was a price. Zola leaned in, stunned. What kind of ritual? He said the wealth would last 5 years, no more. At the end of those 5 years, I would die. And everything, my houses, gold, land, all of it would vanish. Zola's mouth fell open. You mean, it's all going to disappear? Yes, Jumo whispered, tears sliding down his wrinkled cheeks. The time is almost up. Once I'm gone, so is everything. Zola jumped to her feet, panic in her eyes. No, this can't be true. You're lying. I wish I were, he said, voice breaking. I wanted to leave you in Oboma with something. But I can't, I'm sorry. Zola stood frozen. The glittering castle she'd built in her mind crumbled into dust. The wealth she'd clung to, the riches she'd betrayed for, nothing more than a vanishing mirage. You mean? I gave up everything. Clara, my freedom, my pride. For nothing. I gave up everything, for nothing. Zola screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of her fury. Elder Jumo, barely breathing, looked up at her, his voice faint. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could escape. The curse. But the ritual was clear. The wealth was never truly mine. Zola stormed out of the hospital room, her thoughts crashing like thunder. She had given up her friendships, her pride, and her youth for a man who had sold his soul for fleeting riches. Over the next few days, Jumo's health deteriorated rapidly. Zola remained at his side, but her heart was bitter. Every glance at him stirred resentment, not sorrow. On the 5th day after his grand birthday, Jumo passed quietly in his sleep. When Zola got the news, her blood turned cold. Her hand shook as she clutched the phone. Panic filled her chest like rising floodwaters. No, not now. She had waited. For this moment, not like this. Not with the riches vanishing. Not when she was just beginning to taste power. There had to be a way. The wealth couldn't simply dissolve into smoke. Not after all she had endured. She grabbed her phone and dialed every herbalist and spiritualist she had once known through old connections. Please, Baba, she begged over the line. He's gone, but the wealth, it must remain. What can be done? A long sigh met her ear. Nothing, daughter. The deal was sealed. The price must be paid. Zola clenched her jaw. She wouldn't accept this fate. She called another and another. But the answers were all the same. The wealth would vanish as surely as the sun sets. Still, Zola refused to surrender. If the fortune was slipping away, she would snatch as much as she could before it vanished. She rushed to Jumo's properties, trying to sell land and assets. She contacted shady buyers, desperate to finalize deals before the spell's curse. Claimed them. But just as she thought she had secured her escape, she discovered she had been deceived, scammed. The funds never arrived. The buyers disappeared into thin air. No, she screamed, hurling her phone across the room. Her pulse raced, but worse was yet to come. A few days later, news broke. One of Jumo's largest companies had erupted in flames. The blaze devoured the headquarters. The image of smoke swallowing the sky flashed across every screen in the city. Fire wagons surrounded the crumbling building while workers scattered in chaos. Zola stared at the screen, whispering, "This can't be real." But it was. The consequences of the ritual had begun. Everything was crumbling. With nothing left to hold on to, Zola turned to her last hope, the jewelry. The golden chains, the sparkling stones, the bangles Jumo had once draped across her arms like blessings. If she could sell them, She might still salvage something. She rushed home, desperate. But when she arrived at the estate, her heart sank. Police vehicles blocked the driveway. Her breath caught in her chest. She stepped out of the car, legs shaking. "Officer, what happened?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. One of them turned to her, solemn. "Mrs. Alamo, I'm afraid the mansion was broken into last night. Everything of value stolen." Zola dropped to her knees. "No. No, no," she wailed. Her last chance gone. Tears streamed down her face as the truth crashed down on her like a falling tree. It was all over. With nothing left, Zola packed a small bag, picked up her son, and walked away from the palace. She once ruled. No gold, no house, no riches, just her and her child. She had nowhere to go, no money, no allies, no hand to hold. Only one name came to mind, Nia, her old friend, the one she betrayed. When she arrived at Nia's small apartment, she stood, trembling before the door. What if she slams it shut? What if she refuses? She raised her hand and knocked. A pause. Then the door creaked open. Nia gasped, her eyes widening at the sight. The woman standing there was no longer the dazzling Zola, of high heels and jewels. Her hair was tangled, her fine robes replaced with a simple faded wrapper. Her face, once glowing with pride, now looked worn and humbled. Zola's eyes were swollen from days of tears. For the first time in her life she had nothing. Nia's lips parted in shock at the sight before her. "Zola?" she whispered. But Zola had already collapsed at her feet, clutching Nia's legs as her shoulders shook with desperation. Her once proud voice was now weak and trembling. "Nia, please. I have nowhere else to go," she sobbed, tightening her grip. "I know I've done awful things. I hurt you. I betrayed you. But please, just give me one more chance." Nia folded her arms, staring down in disbelief. This was the same Zola who once mocked her simple life, who threw their friendship away for shiny things. And now she was begging. "You did this to yourself," Nia said coldly, stepping back as Zola's hands slipped from her legs. "I warned you. I told you greed would destroy you. But you didn't listen. And now look." Zola sniffled and wiped her tears. "I was blind, Nia. I thought I knew what I was doing. But I was wrong. I need a place. Just for a little while." Nia scoffed. "Why should I help you? Where was this sympathy when you went behind my back? When you stole that man's number and didn't care how I felt?" Zola cried harder. "Please, I have a child now. I can't let Oboma suffer because of my mistakes. He's just a baby." She turned to look at her son, who stood beside her silently, clutching her wrapper, his eyes wide and confused. Nia's gaze softened slightly. The child wasn't guilty. He was innocent and helpless. But the wounds Zola left behind still stung. Zola reached out again, voice cracking. "I know, Nia, I was terrible, but I want to fix things. I'll change. Please, don't turn me away." Nia let out a long, tired sigh. Her heart tugged in both directions. Walk away, or offer the kindness Zola had denied her. Then she looked at Oboma again. The little boy didn't deserve to be punished. "Fine," Nia said at last, her voice low. Zola's head shot up in disbelief. What? "I said fine," Nia repeated, though her tone remained sharp. "But don't think this means I forgive you. I'm doing this for him, not for you. Thank you, Nia." "Thank you so much," Zola whispered, overwhelmed. Nia stepped aside and pointed inside. "Come in, but know this isn't your palace. If you stay here, you live by my rules." Zola nodded quickly. "Of course, anything, I'll follow them." She scooped up Oboma and stepped into the modest home, her heart heavy with shame and relief. Everything was gone, but at least she had this. As she adjusted to the small space, She noticed how much Nia had changed. There were no flashy clothes, no makeup kits, no music echoing through the rooms. Nia sat at a plain desk, laptop open, wearing a t-shirt and loose joggers. Zola frowned. "Nia, what happened to you?" Nia sighed and closed her laptop. "I changed, Zola. I'm not chasing fast thrills anymore. I got tired of running after men who only wanted to use me. I decided to take control of my life." Zola blinked. "What do you mean?" "I learned tech skills," Nia said. "I work from home now, remote customer service. I make decent money. I don't need anyone to feed me anymore." Zola stared, stunned. You did that?" Nia chuckled. "Yes, me. It's not flashy, but it's stable. And I sleep in peace." Her voice grew serious. "Zola, you need to leave that old life behind. You've seen where it leads." Zola lowered her gaze, shame burning in her chest. Could she really change? Could she let go of the only life she'd known? Nia placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'll help you. But you have to want it." Zola swallowed hard and nodded. Maybe, just maybe. This was her second chance. And so, with Nia's support, Zola began to rebuild her shattered life. She took odd jobs, learned new skills, and slowly started gathering the pieces of who she had once been and who she could become. The road was slow, sometimes painful, but it taught her something no riches ever could: humility, strength, and the value of things that don't fade. In the end, Zola realized the truth. All her chasing had brought her nothing but loss. But through love, friendship, and the courage to begin again, she gained something far more powerful: a second chance to live a life that finally meant something.